Oh wait, let me go live on TikTok.
Oh, hopefully I can find something to prop up my phone with.
We're going with this today. My computer.
Welcome to Women in Entrepreneurship. I am Barb McGowan, joined as always by the lovely, knowledgeable, fabulous, and successful Nina Brennan of Creative Brand Framework. And I'm going to let Nina introduce our first topic for today, and we will just dive right in.
Yeah, for sure. So Barb and I were just talking about one, being more intentional, and two, filling time and finding your new identity now that you have time, space, and energy. So when you are in business and you're scaling a business rapidly, there is that pace of that 0 to 10K grind. And even with Barb and I, like 0 to 50K and beyond grind. And it's a lot. Truthfully speaking, like Barb and I, we've met last August or last July, and we have just been running ever since. But we finally hit that optimal point where we wanted to get in business, where it's like, we're pretty consistent with what we're doing. We're making the money that we wanted to be making, but we also have the time that we wanted to be buying back. And it's finding out who you are outside of business in this new frame of mind of like, okay, exploring the self after this rapid growth phase and kind of like settling into who you are now, what you've accomplished and everything like that. And now like the old you, pieces of you are still there, but like what's the new you wanting to do and have now that you are this kind of being? Wow, the Be Do Have model is just like that today.
Yes, queen. I know. I was just having this conversation. Erica, shout out to you. You were watching. But I was just having this conversation with a new client earlier today that it's like, here you are, this is your current state and your desired state's over here. And the transformation that you have to experience to get to that, it makes sense that if you want to get to here, you're going to have to become the person and do the things before you can have that outcome. And it's interesting how, like what you were just saying, it's like once you reach that point of, okay, now I have the thing, now I am the person, I've done the, done all of that. What's the next step? Like what? And it's like you've never arrived, you've never like made it, it's never done. It's always just the next version of, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I know like what we were just talking about before we went live is, I know for me, there's all the stuff that I do within my business, but then there is, what do I want, like my non-business legacy? Like, what do I want to leave behind, or how do I want to serve humanity outside of business? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And shout out to the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. You should totally read it. But it just has made me really think more about how I can be of service to people and how I can do something just like completely altruistically to better humanity. So anyway, not to like go too deep into that rabbit hole, but yeah, becoming that different person, like becoming that better version of yourself that's capable of achieving the things that you set out to achieve. The flip side of that is you want different things when you get there. Like you're not just the same person that's like, okay, well, I want this goal and that's all you ever want. Once you reach that, you're like, okay, well, now what? Yeah.
And definitely there's different, I want to bring a point to this too, because a lot of times, like, there's a time for being, there's a time for doing, there's a time for having, and there's a time for doing all three. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to my little sister about this. Shout out Chrissy. She's 21. Go check out her song on Spotify, Socks by Chrissy. But I was just talking to her about it because she's in that grind phase. She's launching an EP and like one thing after another, like making music videos, getting out there, networking and stuff like that. And the past year and a half, her and I have just been like running together. Like, and it's funny because we have the same background, we have the same family history, and it's like, we're both at different phases of our lives doing a very similar thing. And we've both been stuck in this phase of doing for about a year. And when we were sitting down in my old childhood bedroom when I was in New York about a week ago, what happened was I told her, because I went through I feel very disassociated from everything that I'm doing. I need to take a step back from work and actually grasp everything that I'm going through, everything that I've accomplished, everything that our clients have accomplished, and actually see the value that has been provided and built. And Chrissy was just like, I'm in a very similar situation. Can we kind of like sit down, talk about it, and process what's going on? And the thing is both of us have been in the state of doing, not in the state of being, because of the rapid growth and rapid experience and rapid like production that we've been doing over the past year. If we took the time to sit down and really process every single iteration of self, every single iteration of like whatever we're doing, every single thing that we're doing, if we took the time to process the growth trajectory and like just the production that's been done, it would be overwhelming and the being would collapse, because it's hard to be while you're doing. But we're like, that's the thing. It's like you have to understand who you're trying to become or who you are becoming. Be that person every single day. Be in that doing state. And then when you get to the optimal point that you want, like don't approach burnout. Like I'm not going to lie, I will say don't approach burnout, but like I'm not going to take my own advice because I don't know how. I'm still learning that process, realistically speaking. Like, but you got to take a step back and really just evaluate the journey. And that's the whole like thing of like now it's time for being. And I think Barb and I are in a very similar situation. Like we ran this past year, we were doing and doing and doing and doing, very similar to my business partner Brad. And now we're stepping back into that intentional being, now that we have what we were striving out to do, or striving to achieve, sorry, and then doing what we had to do in order to get to this next level of being. And now we have to just be in this like state and intentionally bring ourselves back to self and process everything that went on. So
it's very, oh my gosh. My sister has said, my sister is like one of the wisest people that I know. And she has said that it's like the process of grief, it's like a blessing that denial exists, you know, because it buffers us from the overwhelming experience of that loss or that change in our life, you know. And I feel like the same is true of like what you were just saying, like there are like the different seasons of being and doing and having and all of that. But it's like, so it's like what you were saying, that you have to like actually stop doing to move back to being in order to like process that. And it just strikes me as very similar, you know, that we are kind of buffered from that experience of, oh my gosh, look what just like went down in my business, or look what I've accomplished or whatever. I need to let my brother's dog in. I will be right back.
No, 100%. I'll just be chilling.
Sorry, y'all. I'm at my brother's house. You'll notice a change in background. Dog sitting. So,
yeah. So I do want to talk about how to step back into being, because that's a big process that I'm currently working on right now. I know you're working on right now, and also Brad's going to be working on in about a week. He's actually moving to Denver as well, and we're both in the state of starting live, like living intentionally. And like I'll talk about self, and like sorry if it sounds weird to talk about self. I usually talk about like business and stuff, but this has to do with business if you want to scale a business. And like again, being in that state of doing, and like every single day, like there's intentional action behind doing, especially if you're working in a business sense. So Barb, I think you've mentioned inside of your group before about time blocking and knowing what you have to do throughout the day and making sure that the things in business are like moving. So when it comes to doing business and being inside of your business, there's like sales calls, there's things that you have to build, automation, systems, client delivery, services, marketing, sales, everything, right? That's the being and doing at the same time to grow a business. But now being outside of the business is something that both like we're all working on. So this is bringing, where was I going with this? This is bringing intention back to self away from business is where we started this conversation. And there's simple things that you could reintroduce to yourself, like having a regimented workout schedule and giving yourself time first. Personally, I like cooking. Not everyone does. I like to connect with my food. I think that the whole process of putting together a grocery list, going to the food store, picking out your food, picking it up, putting it away, putting intention into the meals that you're putting into your body brings a whole like different piece of intention back into my personal life. So like that's something that I'm introducing as well. I'm working out twice a day. I'm making sure I'm drinking enough water. And I'm just like mind, body, spirit. I'm doing yoga every single day. And intentionally, I said I'm doing yoga every single day. So I joined a yoga studio, and every single time at the same time, every single day, 5:30, I booked for the entire month. So like that's like you regiment inside of business, but if you want to do the same thing for self and bring intention back to self, you just do the same kind of regimented blocking, just putting yourself first. And that's how you bring intention back into your personal life. I see what you go say something, Barb.
Well, exactly that. Like, I think that there's this belief, or maybe this is just my personal bias, like, okay, I'm going to relax, I'm going to take time for myself. That means not doing anything. That's not healthy. At least it's not for me. And leave a comment or sound off on TikTok if you disagree or if you have a different experience. But like literally just laying around, not doing anything, not having structure to your day. I'm not saying that's never important, because I do think that sometimes it is important to just sit there and stare at the wall. Like, especially as an introvert, I need that recharging time, especially after a very grueling, period of time. But putting structure to giving, like feeding your soul and like creating time for yourself in a structured way, I think, at least for me, is like incredibly important. And not just being like, oh, well, I have this week off, I'm going to just chill. No, like for me, and I think that maybe this is true of more than just me, and maybe you as well, Nina, but like creating a schedule for yourself to intentionally nurture yourself, intentionally recharge your battery, and like I don't want to say rebuild yourself, but just be there with yourself and like be healthy and intentional about that like self-care. But it's just it's something that I'm just learning, is the need for intentionality and being deliberate with even scheduling time for being off, like being off away from your work, away from your business, and like taking care of yourself and your health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, like all that. So I just wanted to like throw that out there. Like when you're talking about, I have like yoga booked at 5:30 a.m. every single day, and not just rolling out of bed when you wake up and then thinking that is self-care, because I in my experience, it is actually more self-destructive than anything.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to bring a point up, because a lot of people, like, there's a difference between motivation and there's motivation and discipline and habit forming. So a lot of people, they rely on motivation in order to like get things done, where you shouldn't, because motivation is like an ebb and flow kind of behavior. Whereas discipline, it's like, I'm going to do it even if I don't want to. And something that I will promote heavily, and I'm kind of basing my life off of right now, was last April, I decided to do the 75 hard. I was going through a lot mentally. Like, I was going through a breakup. I'm very open about it. My dad was in the hospital for mental health and stuff like that. There was just a lot going on with my personal life that was taking away from what I was trying to accomplish inside of business. It was also taking away from like a relationship aspect of like building, because when I am hurt, I go very inward. So I like block a lot of people off. It's a very normal behavior. I mean, we were in therapy for a while, guys. But the thing is like, instead of just like relying on therapy and like talking to my friends and family of everything that was going on, I decided to actually take control into my own hands and start the 75 hard to bring intention back into my life. And it changed everything. And I don't think that if I didn't do the 75 hard last year and bring peace, joy, and grounding into my life, that I would have been able to enter this state of doing for the last, Brad and I met last June, the last 12 months. And like, we scaled from literally zero and just meeting each other to over 100K per month. Like, it's so in revenue, like that's a lot. Like for two 26-year-olds, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Moving around, moving to Mexico, moving to Colombia, going to California, like so much movement and chaos. And now that I'm back in the state of intention, I'm basing that very similar, like doing like in the morning, the first thing I do, non-negotiable, I make my bed. The second thing, I get up and stretch, I go outside and I read. And like, it's blocked into my calendar, like 2 workouts a day. And I even have it at my background on my phone, and I can literally read what it says. It says, make bed, cold shower, breathe 10 minutes, gallon of water, clean food only, no dairy, soy, gluten, work out 2 times a day for 45 minutes, no alcohol, mobility and stretch daily, read 10 pages a day, 1,200 steps, progress picture. And like that is my background, but everything that I have here, minus like the food, it's blocked into my calendar. Even like this time I'm going to eat lunch, this day I'm going to meal prep, this day I'm going to go food shopping. That is the kind of intentionality that will build first self and get you to that next level of being. And I'll speak from like a personal thing, like take this advice with a grain of salt, but that has helped me level up as a human in the first realm. And like, I know it's going to help me level up in this next realm. And with that, I was able to scale a business. And with this next iteration of self, like God only knows where it will take me. And I'm excited to see like what this intentional period will bring into my life. Just saying.
I know this. Well, no, I don't want to talk about that. I was going to say, it's like when you go into something, some new experience or some new endeavor with that intentional, like building up of self as your foundation, rather than just stumbling into something unintentionally, there it's like night and day. And what it was taking me back to, as you were talking about, like what that schedule looked like for you, was when I was working a 9 to 5, and I knew I wanted something different, and I knew I needed to kind of prepare myself, like mentally, physically, spiritually. And so I started like a very strict routine: journaling, meditating, affirmations, exercising, like doing all this stuff that was really like preparing me for whatever that next step was, whatever that next thing. And I, I started an online business and yada, yada, yada. But I think that that's something that I've been realizing lately as well, is like that intentional foundation of getting yourself to that, like, oh my gosh, something that used to drive me nuts when I worked in investment management is like, you had to do the work of a vice president or a director for like a year or 2 years before you'd get promoted. And even though that just irked my whole soul, the same is true in life. You have to do the work first before you become the person, before you get the thing, And so it's like, by creating that intentional life that gets you to like where you need to get to in an intentional way, so that you can take on that next step, whatever that next step is. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, don't feel like you can just stumble into the next stage of your business or the next step of success, whatever that looks like for you, without intention. Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I know that's super cliche, but when you lack deliberation and intention in moving into that next stage, I think it's the difference between success and failure.
Yeah, 100%. And this could bring a really good point as well of like having not only present moment awareness, and like that's like the state of intention that I think both you and I are entering and in right now. It's like being intentional in the present, but also being intentional with the future. And I want to bring a point of vision exercises for both self and business. And this has changed the trajectory of everything, from like being so clear as to what you want inside of work and outside of work. Like if you are building an online business, I'm not going to lie, if you want to scale an actual business, you're 2 feet in. You can't have half foot in, half foot out. It's like your intention is to build an online business or to build whatever. If your intention is like side hustle, just trying to make money, that's the cap that you're going to stay into. And like, I'm not saying you can't build a business and work a 9 to 5 like side by side, but if you do want to build an online business, the intention has to be, I am going to build a 20K per month online business. And this is why vision is so important, and like the specifics of vision as well. And Brad Schildkraut, my partner, and I are going to be doing the visionary exercise for business later today. And it's good because both of us are in the state of intention and building and growth and like embracing what's next. But both of us had sat down this week and did personal, like what we want for self. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to bring it into the business, because we're still like growing as individual people and like the space that we're in, but we have to bring it back into like, this is where we're going together. This is where we're going as individuals. But I'll bring a point back of 3 years ago, I wrote down everything that I wanted to be, everything that I wanted to do, and everything that I wanted to have. And like now that I've hit that point, it's like, what's that next iteration of self look like? And when I say you write it down, I mean clear everything, like so intentional to the point of weight, hair color, where I was living, what kind of apartment or lifestyle that I was having, how much money I was making per month. Like even the fact that I have some, like we're doing women in entrepreneurship and this is turning into a podcast, that was written down 3 years ago, now 4 years ago. But like I knew exactly the trajectory of like what I wanted to do. Now I'm living in Denver and I'm signing an apartment lease in August. That was written down inside of like my little booklet. So it's being intentional and knowing where you're going and doing everything in order to get there and being the person that could achieve it every single day. And this is through not again through motivation, but through discipline. And I think it's so important that people lack the vision because they don't see the trajectory to get there. But when you have the outcome, and this is business, this is marketing, this is sales, this is everything. If you have an outcome in mind, reverse engineer the day by day, the month by month, the week by week. So like we wanted to get to these 100K months. Okay, if I just looked and wanted to hit 100K per month, that would feel impossible from just meeting somebody last year on TikTok. Like, but and that's why like Brad was like, yeah, we're gonna hit 100K in December. I was like, no, we'll probably hit it April, May. And then I said, we're probably gonna do 30, 30, 60, 100. And the trajectory was 30, 30 or it was like 28, 30, 30, 60, 100. I was usually on par with everything that I said. And it was like, when you have that reverse engineer mindset, you could usually predict, maybe not to a T, but pretty in the ballpark of where it's going to be. And like, I don't know, intention behind everything, but moving with speed and trusting the process, deliberate action and discipline.
And I love like what you were talking about, the difference in motivation and discipline. I recently saw this YouTube video and now I have to find it and post it in the group because it was how to get out of a rut. And it really spoke to me because it was talking about like the difference between motivation, inspiration, and action. And so obviously those are, three different things, but it's like motivation is like a feeling, like it's just feeling motivated, compelled to do something, like you want to do it. Action is obviously like the behavior of doing the thing, regardless of how you feel about it. And inspiration is like that magical thing that we all feel like we're waiting for, when we're waiting to take action or we're waiting to feel motivated. But what I love about it is it really broke down, like it's like a circle, like you have inspiration, then you feel motivated, and then you take action. And then that just keeps looping around in a circle, but you can start at any point. So you can start with action, and then that will cause you to feel inspired and then cause you to feel motivated or, have that sense of discipline so that you can continue on that loop. Anyway, I just loved how it was explained, but something that I always talk about, and I just want to reiterate now because it reminded me of what you were saying, but is like action precedes motivation. Action precedes inspiration. And that's true. I've said that forever, but also it's true on the video, this random guy that was explaining it, it was done very eloquently. But everything, I think, like action is so intentional because you have to intend to deliberately get up and, go for a run or get up and sit down at your computer, and you have to have an intention behind what you're doing. So I just wanted to like throw that out there. If anyone is struggling with feeling uninspired or feeling unmotivated, go out and do some kind of crappy action, something that is just like not even good, but it's at least gonna give you feedback of, okay, well, here's my starting place. Now I know how I can improve and do something differently to get a different or better result.
Yeah. And I also want to bring a point because I do love the whole, you have to take action and you have to plan everything. And I love the quote, those who fail to plan to fail. But there's also the other end of the spectrum of those who plan too much and don't take action. Mm-hmm. And like, I think we're on the same page. You have to plan basically everything. You have to know what you're doing, enter everything with intention, but don't let the fear of failure and like not having a structured plan for every step of the way inhibit you from taking action. Because even false action will pave the way. And something that I've noticed with like Brad and myself, he moves very quickly and chaotically. He's getting a lot better with it. I'll give him credit. He has grown tremendously as a human, but I move intentionally, or I did used to move very intentionally, but very slowly. And the reason our partnership worked very well from like the get-go is he would run with chaos and I'd be like, ooh, dial it back because like intention. And then he would run. And even just now, like we're shifting into a new phase of business. We're starting to run paid ads. Like that's our next iteration of where we're going. And he was like, we didn't really understand like what we were doing, the foundation, like we're still figuring out the process, but he was just like, full send it, launch. I don't care. We got data and feedback. Clear, it didn't work. Like, but he moved the rock out of the way. And then we obviously spoke to our coach and talked about like this worked, this didn't work. He basically shat on our lives and said, this was really dumb of you guys. But because Brad's action, now we can take a step back and move with intention based on the failure that we had basically. And failure is not failure. Failure is feedback. The only failing that you can have is to not take action. So
yes. And just to like go a little bit deeper. So something that just warms my whole heart. So you like Creative Brand Framework has this huge like diagram of like what it takes to bring a digital product to market and like scale it. And there's one point where it's like, is this the offer you want to scale with? Or is this something that's like well received by your market? Is this something that's like successful that you also want to take forward? And if the answer is no, it's not like there's an arrow pointing to the pit of hell. You know, it's not like pointing you to a minimum wage job where you have to suffer for eternity. It just means go back to the drawing board. Like, and so to your point, failure is not failure until you quit and stop taking that as what it is, which is direct market feedback. And then using that to like iterate and improve. So it just reminded me of that. And I wanted to throw that out there.
And bringing it back to your business, and the most important part of building a personal brand is your crowd and your audience will move with you if you are known, trusted, and liked in a marketplace, and if you have authority. So go to Barb if you want to build a personal brand. But the thing is like, if you are providing value and you still have to iterate your offer, and this is the beautiful thing, it's like, you can restart in business. You can go back in business and like kind of change direction. You can fail at business 100 times over. You can really not fail at building a personal brand. You only have one chance. You have one face. I don't care if you grow a beard, change your hair color, get glasses, it doesn't matter. Like you only have one chance to show up and be who you are authentically, and you don't want to destroy that. You can start 18 businesses, 25 businesses, 50 businesses under your personal brand and iterate 100,000 times if you have that know, like, and trust factor, and your audience is seeing the authenticity and the journey of self. And like, think about Barb, think about myself. We both started in different places than we are this time last year. Barb, you were doing full-time affiliate marketing, didn't even have a coaching program. This time last year, I didn't even have Creative Brand Framework. I was working for a done-for-you /coach as like a copywriter, and Brad and I just met. But the journey was, our audience saw the growth trajectory of both Barb McGowan Online and Creative Brand Framework. They followed the process, and because we provided value, we never, for one, client success will always build your brand first and foremost. Being authentic about the journey and radically transparent about who you are, what you are, and not taking on clients that you cannot help and serve is tremendous. And then over serving to the people that actually come into your space of influence or sphere of influence. And that's how you build a proper personal brand. It's not by being fake or trying to copy somebody else. It's admitting when you're wrong, showing up as yourself, providing value, a value that you actually know, and you're not just regurgitating what you hear online. Like if I decide to pivot and do another business, like people know the kind of value that I bring. If Barb decided to go start from like a different iterative point inside of her business, you have that know, like, and trust factor. And that's the importance of building a personal brand. And that's the difference between a personal brand and a business. Your core values of who you are as a person, how you deliver, how you show up, and just like your moral compass. Yeah. That's what's going to build your authority online more than anything else. Your business can fail a million times. Your personal brand cannot.
Work. Yeah, it's like your philosophy, and then maybe this is just biased again for myself, but it's like your philosophy on, I know this is super deep, but your philosophy on like why we're here on this earth. I think that that is like really at the root of your personal brand. Like, are you put here to serve other people? Are you put here to, or I guess in what capacity to serve other people? Like, who do you want to serve and why and in what way? Like, I think that's the foundational, like the foundational component of your personal brand. And that it's like not something that you can or should fake. It's just something that you need to figure out and work through all your BS and your fear and whatever else is in there so that you can figure out what that, like that intention behind your purpose here is, so that you can then go out and execute it or stumble your way through figuring out what that is and how you can serve people, because we were all put here on earth with a certain set of experiences and kind of innate God-given talents, if you want to call them that, but that we get to parlay into meaning by serving other people. Mm-hmm. And so by moving forward with intention, however imperfect, that's how you discover what that is. And that's how you get to increase your internal value, which increases your external value, which means you make money by adding value to other people's lives. And that's dope.
100%. And you know what I love about building a personal brand online? And like, I don't have a tremendous following. I have like what, 28,000 or whatever on TikTok, 2,000 on Instagram. And like, those are just vanity metrics. But the thing is people that come into the sphere of influence understand that one, truth and radical transparency are like the core values of Creative Brand Framework. But this is the most important thing about building core values into your business. Your core values are a reflection of self, period, inside your personal brand, inside of your business. Like maybe a lot of people, they use the words like integrity and communication and responsibility or accountability, but they're not a representation of what those words actually mean. And like, I feel like personally speaking from Creative Brand Framework, the reason that we're able to say that radical transparency is the way that we operate inside of business, for one, it's been proven inside of our business, but also Brad and I, the first time we met, radical transparency is how we're going to hurt each other. Whether it hurts, whether it's like, we're just going to hit each other with the hard truth, no matter what, lens inside business, lens outside of business. And that transparency between the two co-founders of Creative Brand Framework has vibrated through the entire community. And it's also vibrated throughout the entire internal team. And if him and I are having like a collapse in communication, it kind of vibrates throughout everything else. So again, like the core values of who you are as a person and what you hold true resonates inside of your business. Mm-hmm. And it brings back to intention of like why you have to take care of self, especially if you're in a rapidly scaling business and you're a coach or a consultant or a service provider. You're the face of your company. You're serving your clients directly. If you don't pour into your own cup and do intentionally by yourself, or for yourself, I should say, it's going to vibrate throughout the community. The energy that you foster, the truths that you hold, the core values that you have passes down to everybody in your sphere of influence. So,
dude, absolutely. And oh my goodness, everything in our lives is about us, and yet nothing is. And by that, I mean, like, we have to take radical responsibility for every result or lack of result that happens in our business and in our lives. Because ultimately it comes down to exactly what you were just saying, which is everything that happens within our business is a direct reflection of ourselves. Like, yes, people have free will, our clients have free will, and they're going to do or not do whatever. But when it comes to fostering community and like the vibe that your community exhibits, that comes from the top. Just like in the same way, if you're working at, when I was working at Blockbuster, like the store's condition is a direct reflection of the management, because there are a set of standards and expectations that flow down from the top to everybody in the store. The same way with the community on Facebook, the same way with your community of clients that you work with. The way that they conduct themselves is a reflection of how you conduct yourself and your expectation and the culture that you either consciously or unconsciously are passing along to people. So if you, and I'll just like throw this out as an example, if your Facebook group is not super engaged, or people are in there spamming and arguing or whatever, that I'm not saying that you're being spammy and argumentative, but what I'm saying is there's a lack of culture setting and expectation setting, and you need to get in there and like exude that from the ground up, because that's the thing that people are going to take on and express themselves, and that comes directly from you as like the leader.
Yep, absolutely. And that it holds true in everything. And like this is also like, look at your spirit influence on the outside as well. It's like your business is like a representation of you, just like your outside world is a representation of you, and what you choose to entertain, I guess you can say, is like a reflection of who you are. So this holds true. And this is, again, we always talk about standards, Barb, standards and feedback loops and things like that. Like it holds true in life, in business, no matter what phase you're in, of be do have. Like look at who you're surrounded by, both internally and externally inside of business and your life in general, and then take a look at self. So feedback loops are everything. Yeah. All right. I think we could wrap it up there. I think we provided some value today.
Yeah, we were kind of
ebb and flow.
We were kind of out here, and then I think we brought it in, so it's more actionable, practical, and relatable.
Actually, let's bring some intention to close this call out for the audience watching. So what are some steps that you would give for somebody who's looking to step into an online business, someone who's looking to build a personal brand online? What are some immediate action items that they could put into place in order to build a following, start building a community, and really get real with their core values of who they are as a person, and see kind of what they have to work on for themselves?
Cool. Okay, required reading, B by Jessica Zweig. I would say create a very intentional, and it should push you and it should feel a little bit uncomfortable, but create a schedule for yourself where you are prepping yourself and priming yourself for what that next stage looks like for you. Because again, you can't stay the same person and expect a different outcome. You have to become that higher version of yourself. And to kick that process off, start by scheduling time to read, to meditate, to exercise, to do visualizations and affirmations. If you haven't read the book Miracle Morning, highly recommend it. That's probably another required reading for you. But start there. And becoming disciplined is just one skill that you can acquire that's going to really kickstart that process for you. Then read the book B by Jessica Zweig and really think about what, like I was saying earlier, the experiences that we've gone through in life, they're not for nothing. They're for a specific purpose so that we can help people by virtue of that unique person that we've become, by virtue of the experiences, the obstacles that we've overcome, the challenges that we've gone through, and look at what those lessons are, how we have become a better and different person because of that stuff that we've gone through, and then turn that mess into your message. As an example, I'm pretty open about this, that I'm in recovery. And so because of dealing with addiction and alcoholism, I have so much more compassion and empathy for people, but I also want to kick them in the butt a little bit to better themselves, to work through that fear and become that better version of themselves that is capable of achieving whatever their dreams are. That sounds a little bit cheesy, but just being real. So anyway, create a schedule for yourself, read those books, B by Jessica Zweig, Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and just do things that are intentionally outside of your comfort zone, waking up early, taking cold showers, running, doing, exercising, doing stuff that's a little bit out of your comfort zone, because that's going to prepare you for that next stage.
What is it? What's the saying? I actually heard it in yoga the other day. Energy is just emotion and flow, or whatever. Whatever. I botched that quote hardcore.
Emotion is energy and
motion.
Yeah.
So make sure you're getting moving on everything in business, in life, getting things written down. The last thing, do not make a to-do list. If you make a to-do list, get that off your things of anything. Start scheduling your time as a time blocking thing. Make sure this is when you're going to get it done, how you're going to get it done. If you don't get it done in that time period, move on to the next task and get it done at the end of the day. That's it. So with that said, Barb, take us out.
You can catch us next Thursday at the same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, in Nina's group, Create a Brand Framework. We'll drop the link below. Do we have anything going on tomorrow morning?
I have no idea. I know you messaged me last week. We'll see. After today's visionary exercise, business visionary exercise, we'll know more.
So stay tuned. You can also catch us back in 2 weeks, back in our Facebook group for Women in Entrepreneurship. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining on TikTok. And if you're not already in my Facebook group, you can click the link in my bio to join. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.